Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel if you are new. Hello, my name is V. I post nail tutorials every Thursday and Sunday at 8:15 a.m. Central Time. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your post notifications. For today's video, I'm bringing you guys another beginner nail tech series video. I got a little too into the holiday nails and I figured I would take this quick little break to throw this video in there so you guys can learn. I am just throwing a little disclaimer out there before we get into it. By no means am I saying this is the correct way of doing it. These are my methods that have helped me in my nail career, and I'm sharing in hopes that it will help you with yours. I'm going to be talking about the thickness of the nail, the apex, and all acrylic application stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Now let's get right into it. So for today's video, I wanted to start off by kind of explaining a little bit about acrylic application and where to place everything. And then I'm going to be doing a demo for you guys on this nail. I went ahead and applied the acrylic on my index finger. I went ahead and shaped it into a stiletto so I can kind of explain to you guys the concept behind the thickness and the apex area and the importance of all of the above. So I went ahead and applied this acrylic. I talk about the importance of the cuticle area being nice and flush to the natural nail because you don't want any bulk product on that area. If you have too much product, it will cause lifting. So you want it to be nice and smooth. And then the apex area is typically this little section right here. So whenever you are just going about your day, if you knock your nail, this is typically the stress area, and it is where your natural nail meets that tip or that extension, which can cause it to break. So what we do is build that up slightly higher than the rest of the nail so that it does not break as easy. Now when it comes to the thickness of the nail, the thickness will be different in different areas of the nail extension. So for example, in the cuticle area, it is a lot thinner than what you will have in the apex area. And it is also a different thickness than the tip of the nail. So the cuticle area, as you can see, it is nice and flush to the natural nail. There's not too big of a harsh ridge in this area. And then we move to the apex area, which is right here. It is slightly raised, and then we taper down into the tip. So when you think about the thickness of a nail, it is said that it should be no thicker than a credit card. So if I take my credit card and I compare it to the thickness of that nail, it is that same thickness, slightly skinnier or thinner at the tip, just because I like my nails to be nice and sharp. But if you compare that, that is pretty on par with the thickness of the credit card. And I wanted to show you guys what I mean by different areas have different thickness. So I'm going to be taking just random nail clippers and cutting the tip of the nail extension that I have created. So I want you guys to see that thickness starts changing in different areas of the nail. Now, if you look at that thickness of the nail and compare it to a credit card, you'll notice that it is a lot thicker. But when the tip was on there, it was basically the same as the credit card thickness. Now if I clip a little bit further back, because we want the extension to be thick enough to withhold and withstand any pressure or life situations that you might get yourself into where it can cause the nail to break. Now we want the nail extension to be thick enough to withstand any hit or any life situation that might cause it to break. So as we move higher up near the cuticle area, this is where the thickness starts to come in. So I'm going to cut it right about here. Now, when you look at that thickness, it is way thicker than that thickness of a credit card. So the further you move up, the thicker that nail is going to be, which is going to help with any hits or anything like that. Now I'm going to be showing you exactly how I apply my acrylic. I want to focus on the application, how to get the right thickness, the apex area, and the cuticle area. So I'm only doing one nail for this video because I want you guys to really fully understand the process and know exactly how we go about that. So for this video, I am using the Profiles Backstage Acrylic Teaser Kit. I'm going to be using the Sculpt It Like It's Hot in the number 10 that came with that kit, along with the Profiles Monomer. This color is Flawless from that kit as well. I'm going to be using the duster brush that came with it. The Dap and Dish came with that kit, and I'm also going to be using a hand file from that kit. Now, if you have not already watched my liquid to powder ratio, I do suggest you guys go watch that, as I'm going to be using size of beads that you might not be aware of. Now, if you have not seen my liquid to powder ratio video, I do talk about the importance of having that down right, along with different size of beads. So I'm going to be using those sizes for reference into this video so you guys can know what I'm talking about. Now, how I like to apply my acrylic is I'm going to be starting at the tip, and this is going to help build that initial extension and thickness that I want, and then I'm going to work my way up into the cuticle area. This is my preference. You can absolutely do it however you feel is best. So I'm submerging my brush into my monomer, and then I'm going to be picking up a medium-sized bead of acrylic. And I'm going to be applying that right in the middle area. And then I'm going to be working that product down into the tip. And what I like to do is wipe the sides, and it helps guide that powder down to the tip. This acrylic does self-level very well. It's not runny. It's super easy to work with. So definitely recommend it. That kit is absolutely amazing. So all I'm doing is taking my brush and making sure that the shape is nice and tight. I want to get that thickness from the get-go just so that I don't have to worry about it later on. Now I'm just blending that up, patting it into place. You don't need to do too much to it, as like I said, it does self-level. And very, very light pressure is needed. I'm barely touching the product, lightly tapping it, very, very gently. And it falls into place perfectly. Now, once I have my base bead on that, I'm going to be working on this area. So I am going to be taking a medium-sized bead of acrylic, and I'm going to be placing that just above that bead that I placed. And what I want to do is nicely blend that up into the cuticle, and then I'm going to be making sure that it doesn't run into the sides. And I want bulk product here, so instead of really flattening it out, all I'm going to do is gently pull that end of the product. So I'm going to gently blend that into the existing powder and continue to make sure that my sides are nice and clean. I don't want it to run all over the place. Continue to pat that into place. Now for the last bead of acrylic, I'm going to be taking a small bead and applying that in the cuticle. Notice how I'm pulling the finger down. I want gravity to help me do its thing and gently push the product on its own downwards. I don't want it to run into the cuticle, and I want it to be as flush as possible. So being that I'm not leaving bulk product up there, it basically does the work itself. It starts flowing down, which creates a nice flush surface. Once I have blended that all out, again, very, very light pressure, barely touching it, does the trick, especially when working with this acrylic. Okay, so constantly when I'm working, I like to move my finger around like that so I can see exactly what I'm doing. I can already notice from this angle that I can probably use a little bit more acrylic in this area as it's slightly going inward. And you can see that from this view, it just goes slightly dipped in on this area. So I'm going to be taking a small bead of acrylic. You want to place it where you want to fill the product and then work it from the top, blend it up into the existing powder. Make sure, again, your sides are nice and tight, and then you want to blend down into the other acrylic on the tip. And this is going to help blend the product nicely to the existing product. And you will have the bulk product in this area so you don't lose any of that thickness. So I wanted to show you guys the side view, and as you can see, it's nice and flush in the cuticle area, slightly going upwards, and then it tapers down into the tip. And you will see once I start filing, it'll be nice and smooth transition. Now that the acrylic is nice and dry, I am taking my 100 grit hand file from Profiles, and I'm going to start by filing the sides. I'm going to start on one side, and notice how I'm holding the finger. I'm holding it with good amount of pressure on this side, making sure that I have at least one finger on the opposite side that I'm filing, so that when I file, this doesn't wiggle too much that way. So I'm going to file, and then I'm going to be switching to the opposite side. And then I'm going to file the surface of the nail. And I like to do this vertically up and down as you cover more surface, and I feel like the transition you get a lot smoother. Now, because I want this to taper down from this apex down to the tip, I'm holding my hand file almost at a slight angle. So I'm going to be holding it just slightly inward this way and then file like that so that it helps get that transition nice and tapered. And with this hand file, it is a softer grit, so you can't really over file the nail unless you go a little crazy and put too much pressure. So I'm getting the surface nice and smooth, and then once I'm done with most of the nail, I'm going to move to the cuticle area. So I'm going to be holding my finger downwards and then lightly going around that cuticle area. I like to go on one side and then on the opposite side and then directly in that center. And I use smaller strokes for this because I don't want to lose control of my hand file. Notice how I'm switching the hand file's position And then I'm going to go across the entire surface just to make sure that it's all nice and smooth. Taking my dust brush and just dusting that off. We want to turn the hand to look at the nail from the client's perspective. So I'm taking my hand file and filing this nice and straight. I also have a really in-depth video on exactly how I get all of my shapes from scratch from the beginning, and I break it all the way down. So if you guys are interested in that as well, go check that out. And then at this point you want to really make sure that everything is nice and straight. And it looks pretty good from my view. Dust that off. Now I'm going to be taking my sponge buffer from Profiles. This came with the kit as well. And I'm just going to lightly buff that surface just to show you guys what the final result looks like. This does help get rid of any little ridges or any little areas that might not be super smooth from that hand file. Gently go around the cuticle area in smaller strokes. And of course, if you use an e-file, it is definitely a lot quicker. But because this is a beginner video, I wanted to show you guys really how I used to do it. Dust off once again. Now I'm taking my lint-free wipe and some swipe. And I'm going to be cleansing that. Now we're going to be looking at that thickness. I have my nail that I just created and my credit card, and we're going to compare. So typically with longer nails, you do want it to be slightly thicker than a credit card. You definitely don't want it to be that thin. And you can see that it is slightly thicker than that thickness. Again, always take in mind that this thickness is going to be slightly different than this thickness and the apex area and the cuticle area. We want to make sure that it tapers nicely down. We have that good little apex. This is how I like doing mine. I know some people make it a lot more raised, but I feel like this works best for me, especially with all the nail art that I do. I feel like it's just a lot easier, and my clients have really good retention, so I'm not too worried about that. It's nice and flush in the cuticle area, which is what we need, and then lightly raised in the apex and stress area, and then we taper down into a thinner tip, which is just slightly bigger than the thickness of a credit card. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think down below. I hope it helped a ton. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.